I found myself driven and fascinated by the realism that I could attain in creating a sense of space and surface and reflection of light. At the same time, I found myself abstracting from that, and I noticed that these very sort of clean lines, unembellished forms could live in the same space as like a very dissolved ink wash that seemed to be almost like smoke or a cloud. That contrast was really beautiful to me. To me, it reflects and mimics our consciousness, that we live in these very concrete, modern environments, and at the same time, we're carrying around a very ephemeral experience. The dream world to our inner subconscious world, and that those two things really can exist together, and I'm interested in conflating those. My most recent work, I'm calling it close to home, sort of an umbrella term for the sense that we know our intimate world and we know there's a distant world out there. I'm trying to take that distance and make it really close, and maybe even take the intimate and turn it around and see it objectively. Mostly I've been working with ink on paper and combining that with video projections. And the imagery is everything from portraiture to architecture to abstraction. What's most interesting to me is not just these extremes of separation or distance, but the connection between those two, the relationship between melancholy and separation on one side and union and connection on the other side. But really the bulk of the work is about all that stuff in between. It ends up being abstract. It ends up being about the ephemera and the dissolved sort of boundaries between defined things. So the body of work started on a trip to China, where I did an artist residency in Beijing. What I noticed there was this different kind of angle in terms of how they come at the idea of the self and the self's relationship to the larger society. I've been really interested in the relationship between the individual and the collective. If anything, I think that's been at the core of my work. How do we form identity based on how we're taught to think about our relationship to the larger human collective? Okay, I'll go backwards. I'm thinking of it like a fade-in, like a film, that if this was sort of one long timeline. Yeah, so the beginning is almost blank. The show at Rosalux is a 60-foot long sequence of ink on paper paintings interspersed with 2 video projections. The paintings depict the image of a chair in various stages of completion or dissolution. I'm using the chair as a form to riff on, and sometimes it's just an armature. Sometimes it's representative of the human body. Sometimes it's cultural. So there's Chinese design chairs, there's European design chairs that are manufactured in China. So that brings in a sort of political question about globalism. I'm working with them also as just this form, like an abstract shape that can be manipulated. I like that it has all these different layers of possibility. It's neutral, but it's not neutral. It's structured, but it's dissolving. It's cultural, but it's universal all these kinds of, again, opposites that are not really opposites. For me, making art is really a way to learn and to notice my own thinking. It's a freedom. So for me, it's a very alive process. It's very much about asking questions and seeing where those questions take me. I think connection just is. I think that interconnection is going on all the time. And I think it's human nature to kind of separate out and name things and identify and categorize. I think that's what artists do, is make connections between things that we think are really different. And for me, that's also just a metaphor for, living life, that we deal with difference all the time, and how do we do that gracefully, and how do we do that in a way that expands us rather than keeps us apart.